All right. We are so excited. What a fantastic panel we have tonight. Michelle Kaufusi, we'll have you just come up and sit right here. She was born and raised in Provo, where she was a student at Wasatch Elementary, my alma mater, by the way, Dixon Middle School, and Provo High School, before she graduated and went to Brigham Young University on academic scholarship, where she ended up with a Bachelor of Science degree in Global Studies and Local Government. After she met her husband in college, she was a Cougarette, and he was a football player at BYU. She married and became the mother of 5 children, 2 girls and 3 boys. In November of 2017, she made history when she was elected the first female mayor in Provo City's history. She hopes to make the citizens of Provo proud. Thank you so much. Next, flipping over, I have Abby Palmer Cox. So come on up. She grew up in Mount Pleasant, Utah, just 5 miles south of Fairview, where she lives today with her husband, Spencer Cox, and their 4 children. She is the 5th of 10 children and spent a lot of her childhood milking cows and working on the family farm. After high school, Abby attended Utah State University and graduated with a degree in special education with a dual emphasis in early childhood and severe disabilities. When she isn't busy raising her children, Abby spends her time serving in her community and currently sits on the KUED Advisory Board and KUED Executive Committee. She also enjoys spending time with her family, running, hiking, and cross-country skiing. So next we have Rebecca Chavez-Houck. Oh, thank you. Wonderful. A Utah native, Rebecca Chavez-Houck holds a BA in journalism and mass communication and a Master of Public Administration, both from the University of Utah. She represented Salt Lake City's District 24 in the Utah House of Representatives from 2008 to 18, focusing primarily on public policy related to health and human services, as well as voter engagement and access. She served as the House Minority Whip and Assistant Whip. She now provides leadership coaching and community engagement consulting through her public affairs firm, Aspira, am I saying that right? Aspira Public Affairs, LLC. Rebecca is passionate about social justice, cultural diversity, the environment, improving population health, and supporting a robust safety net. She continues to serve on myriad boards and initiatives. Rebecca and her husband Martin live in Salt Lake City and have 2 children. And then finally, we have Jeanette Bennett. Jeanette is a magazine publisher, mother of 5, and a cheerleader for young women. Jeanette used her bachelor's and master's degrees in communications from BYU to become an entrepreneur 2 decades ago. She's the editor of Utah Valley Magazine, Business Q, Utah Valley Bride, and Prosper. In 2018, she was named Top Women Entrepreneur in Media by Folio in New York City. She's a frequent public speaker and presenter, having moderated gubernatorial debates and countless business panels, as well as speaking on a wide variety of issues here in Utah. She is a regular presenter at the Commission on the Status of Women at the United Nations. She and her husband, Matt, are raising their family in Cedar Hills. So, thank you so much to this wonderful panel.
Thank you. Thanks so much for being here. I feel like, but we can't move our seats because of the cameras, but I feel like we need, yeah, oh well. So first I want to start, and thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it, and I know everyone here does as well. But so I presented I opened a can of worms on a number of things, presented a number of things. What are a couple quick things that you've had some ahas with that you found interesting in the research I just presented? Well, let's start with you. Yeah? I think so.
Am I on?
There.
I am now.
There.
So when she was talking about common denominators that she found in women leaders, almost every single one of those rang true to me. Oh. It was, I thought, has she read my journal or something? I came from a single mother with 7 children. She was a strong woman. She was a nurse. She worked the graveyard shift. I had a 3rd grade teacher, actually, that told my mom, she's a social butterfly. We need to staple her to her seat. And my mom said, you got to come up with something better than that. And so she gave me a challenge and gave me a book called Noisy Nancy Norris. I took it home and read it 4 times in one weekend. And from then on, I have read multiple books, hundreds, thousands, actually, avid reader. Just multiple things. I always thought I was unique, but I'm not unique. I am not. It sounds like I have a lot of things in common with other women leaders.
You really connected with that.
Still,
thank you.
Absolutely.
Abby.
You know, I was going to talk about reading too. The fact that I spent a lot of time doing preschool, special education preschool. And so when I was home raising my kids, I had all these babies, it was really important to me, I think, for the boys, but especially for my baby girl who came very last. I noticed that when they were reading, when I got them reading before they headed to kindergarten, they had all this confidence as they entered elementary school and kindergarten, when a lot of their peers were just barely learning how to read. They're barely learning their alphabet and the math too. But all of a sudden they came home with all this confidence, because they're like, man, I can read. I'm in this group and I'm reading better than all my peers. And I think it was a huge confidence builder for my kids, is that academic confidence, which was huge, which is what you brought out.
Thank you. Rebecca.
Same thing, of just so many of the variables that I could just run it down like a checklist. I started reading when I was 3 years old. And kind of on my own accord, and then my mother just took it from there. It was just like, oh my heck, we've got to do something with this. But there's that piece. The other thing too is I never really thought about the youth employment thing as much. I know that a lot of people they worked when they were young in high school, and I didn't. But when I was 8 years old, we had a produce farm in Riverton, Utah, where we sold tomatoes and corn and produce. And I never thought about that as being my first job. And it was, because my mother taught me how to count change back, and I would go out and weigh tomatoes. And if she was busy with something else and there was a customer out front, I had to go take care of it. We were going to lose a customer if I didn't go out and take careful in putting the tomatoes in the bag and weighing them and counting the change back correctly. And I never thought about that as one of those opportunities that my parents gave me.
Probably gave you some confidence.
Yeah, at a very young age. And then lastly, another thing that you brought up that, again, I know it's part and parcel of my life, but I never thought about it as necessarily a triggering event. But my father died when I was 12. And my mother had to pretty much, pick up the pieces and move forward. And that taught me a lot about unexpected things happening in one's life, and being prepared, and not expecting to have someone take care of me my whole life, that I had to learn how to be very dependent and go to school and get a college degree so that I could take care of myself or children or whatever may come my way. But those are probably three things that really resonated with me as you were sharing those points.
Thank you. That having challenges really came up in the research. And by the way, one thing I didn't mention is that women who ended up moving a number of times, sometimes we think we don't want our kids to move. They actually developed resilience in some interesting ways.
Interesting. So many great statistics and so much great information in that. I wish we could have unpacked everything that you said.
I know.
But one of the things that resonated with me was family dynamics. And I wouldn't say that the family I grew up in was what you described exactly, of like great dinner conversation and a lot of that. There was some of that. But siblings raising each other. So I am second of 7. You grew up with 7 children. It looked like from your picture 6 boys, 1 girl. And if you were in age order, you're second oldest.
Yeah.
And I'm second oldest.
Oh,
there's something to that number 7, second oldest. And my older sister played school, and I played journalist. I would make a school newspaper for her school. She became a teacher, I became a journalist, and the two of us are the only ones who've gotten graduate degrees. And I do feel like my sister had a lot to do with me developing leadership skills. She's the one who taught me to read. She went to kindergarten, came home in the afternoon, and would teach me how to read. And so I was her first student. And so I think there's a lot to siblings developing each other's leadership skills.
Thank you so much. So to better understand your context, tell us what age your daughter or daughters are, and what other things have you been involved with that can be kind of chunked into the raising girls and other kinds of roles. And then we'll dive into some of the practical applications. So let's start with Abby this time.
So my daughter is 12. We're just starting in that new phase. And some of the other, and she's my only daughter. I have 3 sons, but she's the baby and she's the only girl. And then some of the other leadership things I've done with women it's probably mostly just church stuff. We've done been involved in young women and with our church group and in the community. And as my role as the wife of the Lieutenant Governor, I've had opportunities to interact with a lot of young women in like the LGBT community, with the homeless, with our homeless friends, and recently with some refugee families that have been. It's just been a really amazing opportunity for our family.
And that gives you some different perspectives going to those different groups.
Absolutely.
And I think your husband, the Lieutenant Governor, is here tonight. Do you want to wave wherever you are? Oh, there he is. Okay, he didn't want me to bring attention to him. But all right, great. Rebecca.
So we let out one of each, a boy and a girl, and our daughter is the oldest, which does play itself out in very interesting ways. She is 30 years old, works for Seattle Children's Hospital in Seattle. And
Any granddaughters yet?
no, we're keeping fingers crossed. They just got married in June. But we're anxiously awaiting that new phase of our life. But I was reflecting on a couple of things when you were talking about other women in your life. And there is a tradition within the Latino community of comadres or comadrazgo, where you have individuals that are godparents. It's mainly associated with people that were raised in the Roman Catholic tradition, but it becomes very informalized. It's very cultural. Even people that are not Roman Catholic have godparents. And godmothers and godfathers, they're there as part of your life. They are co-parents, really. And also thinking about aunts, my mother was the oldest of 13, and I have 7 aunts. And they were all, I just had this group of tias, of people, of women, very, very, very strong women that are around me. And I bring that up because that is the life that I grew up in. And as a result, I find other women to serve those roles for my daughter. So if I'm not there for her, or if she doesn't want me, if she doesn't want me a part of that when she was a teenager, that I had other women that could step into that space that she would respect, and that she would admire. And so there's that village, a village raising a child. It's very cultural for me. And I know that I wouldn't be what I am without those aunts and my godmother and other women that were very, very strong, that were a part of my raising.
Those are great points.
So, and it's we
you.
pass that on. And
Yeah.
so I even look to that when I'm, mentoring other young women, whether it's students or interns, and we'll talk a little bit about that a little later. But
That's great.
Okay, I have 3 daughters. One's a freshman at BYU, one is in 8th grade, and then one is in 1st grade. So they're spread out, and then I also have 2 sons. So I have those 3 girls, and they teach me a lot. I also have 5 sisters and 6 sisters-in-law, surrounded by a lot of women. I use the app Marco Polo. I talk to my sisters every day. We're spread out among 2 countries and 5 states, but we're very close and work through issues together and laugh and cry together. I also have, like Abby, I worked with young women in my faith. I've taken 300 girls to the forest multiple times, which is not an easy task because you have to decorate that forest, feed them in the forest. And anyway, it's a lot of
We
fun.
have to decorate.
We
right?
must.
We
must decorate the forest. So that's been a lot of fun. And then also one of my, like was mentioned in my intro, I've been involved at the Commission on the Status of Women at the UN. And 2 years ago, I took 8 young women with me, and we did a presentation together. And that was a fascinating experience to prepare them for that and to watch them experience that. One of them just returned from an LDS mission last week, and I had lunch there today, and just to talk about our experiences together and what we learned together, both the good things and the bad. So I consider myself a cheerleader for young women, partly because I had wonderful women growing up that were stay-at-home moms. My mom, my aunts, really all the women in my neighborhood. And then I was always, doing well in school and had dreams of a career. That when I became a mom, and I had just almost finished my master's when that happened, my worlds collided, and I honestly felt like I had no mentors. I didn't know what to do when those worlds collided. And so I love having conversations with young women who desire a family, desire education, and perhaps a career, and to talk through how those things might be able to intersect in beautiful ways. So that's one of my passions, one of the topics I could talk about forever.
Yeah. Thank you. Michelle.
Okay, I have 2 daughters. My oldest is 28, and then my youngest is 22, and then there's a whole bunch of Kaufusi boys in the middle.
So anything else? Yeah.
Just, I've been really privileged because I've always found myself fighting for the underdog or the person that's in the gray area is how I like to talk about it. I was that student that was kind of in the gray area. I was the free and reduced child in Provo, Utah growing up. And so as I began to find my own successes and my path, immediately the give back gene kicked in. And my whole life I have been fighting and doing as much as I can to give back. And that's what's put me in this trajectory of politics. This is my 9th year in politics, my 3rd political seat I've held. And every seat I hold, I use it to empower the underserved and women.
And you probably, on my 3 areas, do you remember on the slide, the 3 areas? You probably feel called and a purpose.
I didn't land in the seat I'm in right now on my own doing.
Yeah.
I know without a doubt I'm where I'm supposed to be right now and doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
And I think helping the girls that we influence kind of think about that purpose more specifically when they're younger. I don't think we do that sometimes.
Got to.
So we're going to dive into some other questions now, and I want to take these questions kind of by age groups. And the first one is babies, like little toddlers, and how preschoolers, so before elementary school. So in your experience and the research what have you done or seen others do that you think really develop competence, competence, and all of those things at such a young age? And do you believe, first of all, that the baby to 5 years old is an important time to develop leadership and confidence? So who wants to start on this? I'll just throw it out there. Or do we want to be, okay, we'll stay in the circle order.
So for the first few years of my daughter's life, my mother raised her pretty much. I mean, I was working full time, and I was fortunate enough my mother had retired, so my daughter spent a lot of time with my mother. So that strong woman that raised me then provided some guidance for my daughter. And in retrospect, I was kind of suffering from imposter syndrome a little bit when we were talking about some things earlier, when I was thinking about, I really shouldn't have done this when Erica was little. I probably should have done this instead, because I was thinking about things in retrospect. She was very, very assertive, and we used to call her the cruise director because when they were playing, she would be telling the other girls, so you're going to do this, and then you're going to do this, and I will do this. And we kind of made fun of it when she was little. And in retrospect, really, we should have reinforced that as, we're really proud that you took the lead and you organized that play date. So that was kind of one of those things for a minute. I'm like, that was a learning moment for me that I'm hoping
bossy word comes out sometimes.
We never said that, but it was just, it was kind of like, that's kind of cute how she's doing that, instead of reinforcing that's great that you do that. The other thing, too, is in this age group that I thought was really interesting in retrospect that I think I did do in a positive way is that they go through these phases where they decide to wear the most unusual things at the wrong time. So when she was
I love how you said that.
Yeah, well, when she was 3 years old, it was the tights and the patent leather shoes, no matter where we were going. And I could have said, no, you've got to wear the snow boots and you got to do all this, but we found a way to make it work. And so that was kind of one thing that I was thinking about when I was reflecting about when Erica was little, about positive things we tried to do.
That's good. So one quick thing before Jeanette takes it is one study out there actually talked about how unconsciously parents hold their son babies, is that out more to the world, and hold their daughters more towards their chests, to explore the boys more. So it's interesting to look at just even smaller. I don't remember all the impact on that, but it was fascinating.
Interesting. I'm now trying to picture myself as a young mother. So one thing that I think is fascinating, and I think this is true of any age, but it starts when they're young, is when we continually give appearance-based compliments to girls, they start to crave that and feel that they are valued because of it. And it's so easy to do because little girls are so cute, and their little pigtails are so cute, and their clothes are so cute. But if we as aunts and neighbors and friends and mothers are constantly saying that to them, then they think, this is how I get your love. This is why you approve of me. And then that's why we crave compliments and attention, like you said, because we've created that in them. And so I started creating a Google Doc a few years ago because it's so easy. That's the easiest compliment to give. You know, it's so easy because sometimes it's all you know about this person in front of you is what they look like. But if you can twist it just a little bit and say, you've got light in your eyes, what are you thinking about right now? You know, or you look happy. What have you been doing today? Or, you know, so it's still kind of talking about what they look like, but it's more about what's in their eyes and not just what God gave them appearance-wise or what their mother purchased for them. I think that's important, and that starts when they're little, is to be able to just talk to them, talk to their brain, you know.
So my daughter I just was over there the other day. I love this little baby. And she's like, isn't she so beautiful? And I'm like, yes, she is. And we've been talking about that. And I'm like, but we need to say other words. She's so smart. How do we know she's smart? Yeah, like I'm trying to think, what else do we say at a baby?
Well, you can say, you're calm.
Oh,
you know.
yeah, that's
yes,
good.
You seem peaceful, you know, or whatever it is. I can tell you're thinking, you know, whatever it might be.
You're a good eater. Yeah, she does say that. She does say
Another
that.
thing to say to women, you're a good eater.
That's good. Well, you're up.
So those years are just such great years, and when I think back to those times with my kids, I got married a little bit later in life, and that was just my prerogative. It was what I wanted to do, and my husband teases me because all the people my age now are like on their 7th grandchild, and he keeps saying, you should have married me the first time I asked, and you'd have 7 grandkids by now. But it just wasn't what I wanted.
Grandkids are cool.
I can't wait. I'm really excited. But I just remember having to work so hard my whole life, honestly, really worked from the time I was about 8 years old for everything I ever had and had to contribute to my family, you know, scrubbing neighbors' bathrooms and reading to their children and cleaning houses and working 2 jobs in high school and going to college and working a graveyard shift sorting cherries. I mean, I really had to go through the ringer. So
I sorted cherries in Provo one
did
summer.
you? All night though? From 7 to 7?
I don't think, but that's
Yeah. And I just remember I was so grateful that my husband made it so I could be an at-home mom. It was so new to me. And so from the minute my first child and 17 months later, my second, 17 months later, my third, and then a surprise pregnancy of twins. And I just remember thinking, I'm the luckiest person in the world because I have all these little ones and I get to be home with them. And I just remember spending hours wearing out my knees on my jeans because I was always literally ripping my jeans because I experienced the other side of life and I really wanted to experience this side of life.
Yeah, I want to go back to what was said over here about choices. I love the idea when we're talking about we're talking about preschool, toddler ages, and I always say with Emma Kate, I felt like she wasn't a baby. She was only a baby for about 6 months, and then I felt like I felt like you with your. Only she's my baby, and I really wished she was the oldest because I think it would have been easier for me. She'd be such a great little. She would have taken care of all the boys.
She's just 12, though.
Yes, yes. But I love the idea of choices. Clothing, and I was a much more relaxed mom. It's probably good. We'll probably be better friends because she came last. I'm better at letting go of some things. But I like the idea of empowering them from a very small age to have choices. Whether it's what they wear or just anything like that. I think that's important for those little girls to have a say in what goes on, and then that empowers them and gives them more confidence, I believe.
Yeah. And I think sometimes just more limited though. I have another grandchild who's almost 3, and he's had way too many choices about what he eats, and he just doesn't eat. My kids never had choices; they just ate whatever.
It was you either do this or you do this or you don't, and you get the punishment. Yes. So those are your choices.
So let's move up to kind of elementary school years. So Jeanette, why don't you start with that? What are some things that you think are important that you've done or you've seen done that are important to help develop leadership skills through confidence and all of those other things?
Right. I'll piggyback on what the three other panelists talked about with reading. I think sometimes that we categorize books as girl books and boy books. And I don't think that's helpful. I think boys should read boy and girl books and the other way around as well. I think it's important to empower them and to show them the possibilities. You talked about having them know about women leaders, and I think that is really important to point out women in history and to help them learn about that. And also, when you're picking a family doctor, pick a female and get everybody comfortable with that. We haven't had a woman president of the United States, and I think that there is really kind of a carryover effect of that. And luckily we've had our first Provo female mayor and we've had other women that have done amazing things. But I think we need our girls to see that and empower that and praise that. Also, in the business world, there is this stereotype that women aren't great at being happy for each other, that we can be kind of critical of each other. And unfortunately, I have seen that. I've also seen a lot of the opposite where we are supportive. Encourage our daughters to have more of an abundant mentality so that they can be excited when the other dancer wins, and to kind of squash that when they're in those elementary years. There's enough joy, there's enough success for everybody, men and women. Let's celebrate
And that's
that.
actually a fixed growth mindset principle. If you're in a growth mindset, which we need to get all of our girls in, you really rejoice in other people's success. So that was perfect. Thank you.
So elementary school, I just had the thought with my kids that we never set up. There was no parameters. There was no boundaries. If my oldest Alexis played basketball and she couldn't find a girls' team, I stuck her on a boys' team. And if my little girl Daryl was a soccer player and she was better than the goalie on the boys' team and they wanted her, I said, go play on the boys' team. And plus we have a lot of boys. There was never, in elementary school, it was if you see it, you can be it. We really lived and died by that in our home, is if you can see it, you can be it.
So really outside those real tight role.
Oh, yeah. That's, yeah.
I love that because I was thinking about that too with my daughter. I remember having a moment. We love to go out. We love football too, and we love all kinds of sports. But my boys would just love to go out and play football in the yard. And I remember the first few times when Emma Kate was old enough to kind of get in there and play with them, they'd say, "Well, you go be the cheerleader." And I said, "The heck she is." I said, "She will get in there and she will throw that ball just the same as you." And I think that, and again, encouraging, let's get them in there. Let's not pigeonhole them into some role that they, that the boys think that they should have, but allowing the boys to say, "No, you'll throw this to her. Yes, she is little, and yes, she is learning, but no, she'll be a cheerleader if she wants to be, but that's not where you're going to tell her to be."
And interestingly, just so you know, the research around women leaders, 80 to 90, Amanda's the study, 80 to 94% of women who are CEOs of businesses in this country were athletes in junior high, high school, and college. That's how much. And I found in my research, actually, that the sports was key, but also speech and debate was a very good preparatory, learning that argumentation, learning to speak good. That was really important in leadership too. So
Sports teach you to fail. That's one of the things.
Yeah,
that I love
that's
about
true.
it. You're never going to win all your games. You're never going to win all the races. And so you learn to fail, which is a great way to learn leadership and resilience. And
Exactly.
So sports is one of the best ways for that.
So just echoing a lot of the same things, encouraging our daughter to try. I mean, we had lessons of the month. It was either sewing and then sports and then Girl Scouts and then piano and just whatever she wanted to try. We were not going to be we weren't going to be the ones limiting her to that. And I would echo the sports effort. And there's research that shows that if young girls are involved in athletics of any sort, that develops a lot of resiliency for some of the challenges that you can often encounter when they're teenagers with peer pressure and body image and all of those types of things. That the resiliency that's developed when young women and young girls are participating in athletics makes a big difference.
I have a op-ed piece in the Deseret News from this summer that kind of goes through some of that research, and there's other things as well. But the group sports, individual things help you develop certain kinds of things, but the team sports are the dynamics, the failure, the letting people shine while you might not shine, but there's other things as well that might help as well. But I think I'm into sports, so I think that's great. Any other comments on that before we move to high school, junior high school? What other things come to mind? Yeah.
So one of the phrases that I'm on a quest to abolish is that we tell young women, often in high school, that they should plan on going to college just in case they need an education. And I hear that a lot from really well-meaning, educated people, and that is not something to tell a young woman in high school, is that, I sure hope you don't have to be smart. I sure hope you never have to use this. No, you go to college because you have a brain and because you will develop as a person and you want to open doors. You don't know what life will hold. You don't know what you'll want to do, so keep those doors open. It's also the best place to be when you're a young adult, is to network and...
Yay!
I like that. Yeah, so I think in high school we should not use that phrase.
And the research, I did another recent op-ed, our research and other research says that actually when you have young women start saving money as early as they can remember, like kindergarten even, save the pennies in the bank, college or mission or whatever it is, that actually they're more likely to go to college. So that's something. And what we know is women who go to college develop more leadership skills. So,
when I was growing up, there's 10 of us, and there were 8 girls in my family. And I remember my dad having a very specific conversation about this idea of going to college. And I remember my mom and dad, both of them would say, "You're not just going there to get married. You are not going there to get married. You are going there to get an education." So that from a very young age was instilled in us. And I've done the same thing with my daughter and my boys. But this is a time you have brains in your head and you can do this. And there's no reason why you don't finish college. You need to just do it. So I love that conversation.
yeah. So what other things?
8 girls.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So one issue that I was kind of caught off guard by was kind of the Mean Girls, Queen Bee stuff that happens in junior high and high school, and trying to help my daughter navigate that because of the peer pressure and the expectations, and they're moving into puberty, and you want guys to like you, and all of those things that we go through as young adults and teenagers, both boys and girls. But that one was the one that was kind of one thing that really I had to really kind of think through and call upon friends that had teen daughters that had been through these phases and try to figure out to develop the empathy gene, so to speak, because at that age sometimes there's this notion of eat or be eaten is the only way that I can look at it. It's like, it's either, you are at the top of the game or you get beat on. And, I just really tried to encourage my daughter that there is room for everybody. There is abundance, and that there's no need, that's not where you need to be competing. That type of competition isn't healthy, and you don't need to put other people down. People don't need to put you down to lift themselves up. But that was probably one of the
important.
one of the more challenging periods of being a mom.
Because it can affect their self-esteem.
Yes. And I had a tendency to kind of be a helicopter mom with both my kids, unfortunately, and you want to just save them, but it's the failure. And what do I learn from this, and how do I change what's happening to me in order to come out through this more resilient? That I learned a lot as a mother from.
And like I said in the presentation, you can learn leadership from a lot of things, including running for office, whether you make it or not, including all kinds of marching band. Girl Scouts came up in the research as really giving opportunities, church leadership, a lot of other things. Any other thoughts on types of activities? during high school?
Well,
or?
I was in Girl Scouts. I was in Girl Scouts all the way from the time I was a junior Girl Scout. So that's 4th grade all the way through
Yeah.
seniors. And my mom was our leader. And again, it gave some opportunity for me to bond with my mother. That does bring up the point of positive girl network opportunities for young women
Yeah.
at that age, junior high and late elementary, junior high school, of finding those places where we can, not only in athletic opportunities, but in scouts or the girls groups at church, where you learn how to positively work with each other.
Yes.
And have adults that are helping you through that. I think those are very crucial.
And Michelle, you worked a lot, but I expect that you had some leadership opportunities in those settings in some ways.
Oh, absolutely. That's the kind of the blessing and the curse of being a busybody. Is you go to a class or a club and they say, we need someone to head up this event, and everyone sits there quietly and you just can't. Okay, fine, I'll do it. You find yourself in a lot of circles and volunteering a lot, and honestly, it just, in junior high, you start doing that, and then all of a sudden in high school, you're just pushed to the front automatically. Everyone
But
just
saying
pushes you to the
yes,
front.
a lot of times we focus when we talk about these things on you need to learn to say no, you need to learn to say no. We hear that all the time.
I did too. I
And-
heard that too, and if I
but
had said no,
it's-
I wouldn't be the person I am.
Sometimes yes is the most powerful thing
really
for
is.
developing leadership. Abby, did you have a comment?
Well, yeah, I thought about my time in high school, and I did play sports. I played basketball, and I had some negative experiences there too, but positive ones. But I got to my senior year, and I remember, my parents, they were great, but they also said, you're an athlete, you're an athlete, you're an athlete. My whole time, you're an athlete, and I got to my senior year, and because of some negative experiences, I decided not to play basketball my senior year. And I remember just having this really kind of a crisis because
Identity crisis,
yes,
probably.
and I didn't know who I was because I'd been told I was an athlete, and now here I wasn't an athlete. And I actually ended up doing choir and got involved in seminary and did a bunch of other things that really helped me. So one thing that I've talked to my young women about, the young women that I have been a leader of, I have said, be careful. It's great to do things. You should be involved, and you should say yes, and you should take opportunities. But be careful of how you define yourself. You shouldn't be defined by what you do. You should be defined by who you are. And these leaderships, and that develops who you are in a lot of these ways. But be careful that internally is not who you are, because once you're not doing that, you may not know who you are.
Wow, that's powerful. Thank you for sharing that. So I just want to ask maybe just one more question, but just a quick responses, because I want to leave a few minutes, about 10 or 15 minutes for your questions. Robin, you can take around the mic. So just beyond high school, do you think we're done, or do you think we still need to impact and influence girls and young women as they're even adults? Some of us have older. Any quick thoughts?
We're never done. And a lot of women my age, so I'm 44, say my age.
She's a baby.
I'm just a baby. A lot of women my age didn't have, so I have the first grader, I have the caboose, but most of my friends, maybe didn't. And so their kids are all in maybe junior high, like the rest of my family. And they went through really an identity crisis when their kids all went to school, because they had identified themselves as a mother of young children. And then when the young children are not there, and they don't need them as much, they had an identity crisis. And so this is a process. This is a lifelong process that I think women go through, of figuring out what they're capable of, and can I apply for this job or this nonprofit, or what can I do with my time and my skill set?
And even how to lead. I mean, some people don't think that motherhood is leadership. It is so leadership. And church, but they box themselves maybe into a couple things, but we can lead in different ways, and so helping each other, influence each other and our kids and other people understand that. Yeah. Any last comments on that?
The one thing that I was thinking about is how we as leaders, we model the leadership. we manifest that. And so I would agree with Jeanette that we're always learning. And what I find really wonderful at my stage in life is that I'm learning from younger women. That's so powerful. It's so powerful that I'm open to the lessons that they're teaching me, whether it's my daughter or a number of the interns that I've had in the legislature, the way they interact with their peers, the way they assert themselves, that I hold great hope because I'm learning from them.
Yeah, and you were talking before how you remembered some of the letters that interns had given you.
Yeah, I went through them this morning because I was trying to ground myself for today, and I thought, I'm going to take a look at those, and very powerful insights.
And we can impact people in all areas of life, each other specific. I mean, we can just powerful transformational moments even with each other.
I just wanted to say one thing too, is that we need to find men and help men to empower women. So my husband was in need of a chief of staff a few years ago, and he kept saying, I said, you should find a woman. Well, you can't have a chief of staff that's a woman. I said, sure you can. And he said, and he did. He wanted to. It was, and he's trying to figure out how this is going to work. And the interesting thing is you look at resumes and you look at people, and there was just somebody in the office that I said, hey, I really like her, and I've seen her do some amazing things, and her name is Kirsten, and I think she would be awesome. And he said, I've never thought about that. I've never thought about her in that role. And maybe she doesn't have all the, experience that some of the other, men in the office or men around had, but because we need to give women that experience. That needs to be the experience. Yeah. And so I think we need to look for men in our lives that are willing to do that. And I have, just one other little shout out. I have my son who's a senior here, and he's here tonight too. He has been so fun at school. He has taken this upon himself to be a feminist, he says. And he has been, he has many friends that are girls, and he has empowered them, and he stands up for them when there's sexist comments from other boys in the school, and I'm proud of him. It's been awesome.
And I just want to end by, and I tell my kids all the time, because sometimes when you're out there a little bit in the society, in the world, I constantly remind people all the time, I wouldn't be in the position I am without my husband. I give a lot of credit to my husband. He's a wonderful man, and he's strong, and he's a leader himself, but yet he has wonderful balance. He knows when to step back and let me shine, and I honestly adore him and love him and respect him, because being in politics is ugly. You have to be vulnerable. You have to put your whole family out in the public eye, and it's not pretty, but I have a wonderful support system with my children and especially my husband. I wouldn't be able to do what I do without a wonderful, strong husband.
Thank you so much. But one other thing before we give up the mic and let you think about your questions, related to what both of you just said is, and I talk about this, some of you that have heard me talk before have said this, but generally speaking, women more than men, girls more than boys, 30 to 40% more need to be tapped. I call it the tap. So boys, in sixth grade, if there's something to run for office, boys are going to say, I'm good. I know, 50% of what I need, and that's good enough. And girls will wait till they're perfectionists. And the same thing with women. It's said 50 to 60% of, if men know 50 to 60% of what a promotion or running for office is, they'll put their, they'll put in their application or sign up. And for women, it's 90 to 100%. And so the powerfulness of the tap, not that we're less prepared, not that we're less smart, not that we just need to be tapped. And so this starts when they're young, that we tap. And the interesting thing is women will not even consider like running for office or putting in for a promotion or running for student body president, oftentimes, not every woman, until someone brings it up and says, you should do this, you can. The powerfulness of that tap is remarkable. I've seen that in my research. It continues to be powerful, and that means I tap all the time. Everybody I'm around, I tap my male students, female students, I tap people all the time and say, you're really smart. I see your brain. You really need to get a master's degree or something. And it's spooky. How many people listen? I mean, it's really spooky. And then they change. That's a life-changing thing. I feel like this weight on my shoulders. But thank you so much. Questions? Do you have questions out there? Okay, there's one right here.
Hi, I have a question. So I am a single mom. I've gone back to school to get my master's. I graduate next month. And thank you. How do you, coming from outside of, or like taking time off to go out of the workforce to raise a family, and then going back in, how do you overcome that imposter syndrome?
So I've done that. We've probably all done it. I mean, at some point, and it's a little bit scary. You know what my trick was I didn't take a break. I went right from raising my children, being involved where they were, I wanted to be. I was all of a sudden the president of the school board, and one thing led to another, and I just didn't take a break. But with that same token, I had a girlfriend call yesterday, and she was like, Michelle, it's 11 o'clock and I'm still in bed. Our children are all the same age. She's like, I just don't have motivation. What do I do? And so everyone kind of handles it a little bit different. But for me, it was, don't take a break. What's next? What's the next big thing you want to do? And
Say, we have a video that you should watch. Robin actually facilitated it on the home to the workplace and the transitions. We have many videos on the transition.
It is a huge transition.
I think Robin's the one that can help you with that.
So one of the things I would ask you is, do you have daughters, son? What do you mind me asking? What? 3 girls. Oh my gosh, this is wonderful. So the thing is the thing you need to remember is you are being an amazing role model for your daughters, and you don't even notice it. You won't realize it until they're adults. I can't tell you how many times my daughter has said to me, I can't believe that you've done all these amazing things and you're wonderful. And it is powerful when you realize they've been watching you, and that these steps that you're taking, even though they can be really scary, that they're just watching you, and you will benefit from what they see from you. Surround yourself with other women that will lift you up. Okay, it looks like you've got some right there, and because that makes such a big difference when you feel like, I can't do this. Why did I decide to do this? How can I get through this? Just remember, your daughters, they will benefit so much from it. Number one, you will benefit from it, and surround yourself with people that can just uplift you.
Having interviewed potential employees for my company that are in your situation, that are moms coming back to work, I would tell you, when you go into the interview process, own your story. Be proud of it. You've lived an awesome life. You've learned a ton as a mom. You're finishing your graduate degree. Tell them the truth about who you are. Here are some of the things I've learned as a mom. I also have the education. And between these two things, I know I'd be a great fit for your company. I bring my work ethic. I bring my passion. And just really own it. I don't like it when they do I'm really sorry, I've just been a mom and I've just been home, which I know isn't great. Just own it and go in with confidence, and they'll love it. They'll love you.
So I kind of wish that there were more men in the audience, because I feel everything that's been said and just the thoughts that have come into our head as women are things that they need to hear. But to all of you in the panel, what are some things that we can take back to the men that we are surrounded by, whether in high school or work or wherever, to help them become more of our allies, to strengthen us? Because it shouldn't be us versus them, boys versus girls, men versus women. It should be synergistic, where we're working together to empower each other and give each other that space to grow and become our best selves, no matter our gender. So what would you have us tell these men that we're around to help us become the queens that we are?
That's a great question. And in all of this empowering women, I don't want men to feel belittled, because we want both genders to be elevated. And one of the reasons I got involved at the UN is this is what I was seeing back there, is that women feminists, and which is, I consider myself a feminist. There's a big range in that word. But a lot of what goes on back there is they think, okay, for us women to be equal to men, we've got to be same. We've got to eliminate the differences. It's all the same. And a lot of the thought back there is if women get married and have children, that makes them not the same. And so there's a lot of anti-family, anti-motherhood messages back there because we want sameness and equality. Equality is not sameness. So men have amazing characteristics, and we should honor and love that and build on that. Women have amazing characteristics. There were things in that presentation about our gender that we need to do better, but we still need to be women. We don't need to be men. We need to own what we are good at and bring that to the table and love who we are, our biology and, our emotions, and all of that makes us awesome. And then who men are, that makes them awesome. And together we can really do amazing things. It's so important to have men and women around a corporate board table because we will bring different ideas, and that's the best. Because all of our clients are men and women, so we need all of the thoughts. So I would just say never be someone who puts down a man. Elevate them, expect them to do that for you as well, and that creates an environment where everyone can succeed.
And I do need to tell people here that, and many of you might know, but our latest brief that is out there is called Strategies That Male Allies. We did major research on the positive things that men did to really strengthen the impact of girls and women. And there's wonderful things they can do. Oftentimes they don't know what to do. Right now in the Me Too, kind of some of them are a little nervous and they want to do, there's a lot of good men out there, but we need to give them some tools.
I think just be intentional and communicate effectively like you just did. I think we need to be better at communicating what we need. Say, this is what I need from you. And I think, once we do that, then I think sometimes they just don't know. It's the unintentional bias stuff. So I think just to be very clear in our message of what we need from them.
I think the thing that I would add to this is that while there are differences between us, the men do need to realize there's a sense of that there is a privilege that they have, and that recognizing that and understanding how that plays itself out in the workplace, in school, in social settings. And, I've tried to do that with my son. I've tried to do that with my husband, of just helping them recognize that they have that privilege and that they need to sometimes step to the side and, let women that are around them shine. They're very good at that. But I'm just saying, I think sometimes men don't realize that systemically they do have privilege, and that to step aside and to look for those women that they can lift up and raise and move forward. And that when they do that, they are showing their true leadership. Being a true leader doesn't just always mean that you're in charge. Being a true leader is showing how you can help others lead the way and lead the group and lead the tribe.
That was great. Hello. So one thing, in fact, one of the last panels I did, your husband was on it. One of the comments that he made was that men, once they can be advocates, like you mentioned as well. So, but oftentimes they want direction, and we can talk to them in positive ways about this and uplifting ways. Did you?
Oh, I was just going to say, as I think about this, a trait that men have that I really admire is loyalty. Men are very loyal to each other. I see it in the men I work with. I work predominantly with all men. And my boys and my household has a lot of men in it. And they are very loyal to each other, which is something I have learned from them and try to bring into my daily life. It's the mentality of, I can pick on my little brother, but don't you dare pick on my little brother. Because then you're going to face me, my 2 sisters, my 3 brothers. We're coming after you. But we can pick on him all we want. But it's that loyalty that men have that I just love that. And if you can win men over and show what asset you are to them and they are to you, and that you have this partnership, that loyalty comes through. In my office, the loyalty's huge. I literally can go into a room, and if someone starts to kind of fire up a little, I just sit and kind of smirk, because I have 7 men that'll just go to bat for me right away. And it's very, very comforting.
So it is actually time. I wanted to conclude by 1:15, and it's about 18 after. And we have some refreshments out there, but I'm going to ask 30 seconds. I'm going to hold you to 30 seconds each as we conclude here today. So just take all of this, think about all the things that we've talked about, and what final piece of advice would you have on raising girls to be leaders? So Jeanette, why don't you start, and or do you want to? Okay, she's looking up something.
I had scribbled some notes in here, so I'm seeing, is there anything we haven't covered? Sorry. I would just say to the young women here, just develop this curiosity in life. I just think that's a great way to become a leader, is to be someone who asks questions, who looks up answers, just tries to learn from people around you, have questions, ask questions. I worked at BYU Idaho as a professor, and David Bednar was the president, and he told us once that if he was in a job interview and he was interviewing them, and if he said to them, do you have any questions? And they said no, he did not hire them. So be someone who asks questions and be a thinker.
So this is the message to the parents, because it's a hard lesson, but it's not about you. When you're raising daughters, you're raising children, and it's a hard lesson that we as parents, that my husband and I had to learn often the hard way, that we're not trying to make little replicates of ourselves, that our daughters and our sons, the children that we are entrusted to our care, they're their own people. And they're going to be whatever, they've got their skills, their talents, and it may be very different than who we are as individuals. We try to shape that, but let them be them. Let them shine.
I would just say be an advocate for yourself, and be an advocate for your daughters, and be an advocate for those women who you have contact with, who you may influence. And as we do that, I think together, this idea of empowering each other together and lifting all boats, I think, women will thrive in that kind of environment.
And my 30 seconds, I would say extend yourself. No matter where you are, extend yourself. If you're standing in line to get a hamburger, start a conversation with someone next to you. If you're sitting here tonight, at the end, say, now tell me who you are and tell me what you do. That's all you have to say, and you've made a friend. Please, please extend yourself. It opens a lot of doors and a lot of pathways that you'll be glad opened for you.
And I would just say, to go back to what I said about the tap, to me, tapping our own daughters is important, but tapping other girls and young women and even other women can actually change lives. I've seen this in hundreds and hundreds of women through the years in my work. Just those taps and encouragement and lifting and really looking for the strengths and positive in yourself and other people can make such a big difference and really change lives. So thank you so much for coming here tonight. Thank you to the panel.